This is the Alfred Daily. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.
It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 25th of May. I'm Kerry Jones. Shaftesbury's MP's lockdown concerns following angry constituent emails and a perplexing PM briefing.
A lot of people are feeling both annoyed and confused.
Kind locals chip in after cash is stolen from an honesty box on the Maltings.
It is very appreciated.
Melbury Motors boss says he's prepared for socially distanced car sales and maybe more custom.
There are some people who previously didn't use cars who are now sort of thinking that cars might be the safer option.
We chat with pet chicken keeper Kate Scott as she gives one of her hens a trim.
So we've got her under the arm.
Shaftesbury Quizmaster Paul Merrifield's here with his bank holiday brainbuster.
With my virtual pub quiz.
Fearing for their flock, a scare for our Wardour Smallholders.
There's a particular fly that attacks the sheep.
The Potting Shed's Nick Andrew highlights a purple plant on Layton Lane.
When it flowers, they come up in a little plume that looks like wisps of smoke.
And nesting sparrows on Breach Lane, recorded by Nick Crump. Hello, I hope you're well. Shaftesbury's Conservative MP, Simon Hoare, thinks the Prime Minister's senior aide should quit. Dominic Cummings drove 260 miles to Durham, it's said for childcare reasons, at a time when government lockdown advice was to remain at home. Mr Hoare says Boris Johnson's Sunday press briefing failed to address North Dorset constituents' concerns that a man who shaped the guidelines chose not to follow them.
My wife and I watched it. With a growing sense of perplexity. I think if you're going to say nothing has gone wrong, then you produce a very full and detailed chronology to sustain the argument. And that wasn't produced. And it was a sort of, that's it, let's now move on. That would have raised far more questions than it answered. And certainly in my inbox today, I've got a lot of very, very angry constituents who made enormous sacrifices in so doing, and now deduce that they weren't, or they needn't have, and everything would have been all right.
Simon Hoare says the lockdown rules were quite clear at that time.
You don't traverse the country to go and visit other people and join other households and all the rest of it. And likewise, if you are fortunate enough to own a second home, you don't visit that either. And that was very black and white, and the lion's share of the people of this country adhered to that guidance to the letter, believing that they were doing the right thing and that there were no exceptions. So I think a lot of people are feeling both annoyed and confused. And I have a worry if the data changes and the brakes need to be reapplied and we need to resurrect either in whole or in part, the rules of lockdown, I think the British people are going to be very reluctant to follow them with the rigidity with which they did the first time round.
Mr Hoare's worried the message might be received as there's one rule for the political elite and one for the rest of us.
The whole thing plays into the do as I say, not as I do approach to life. We're very good at telling people what to do and very bad at doing it ourselves, or don't somehow or another think that all of the rules apply to us all of the time. And I think that plays into that narrative, leading to a fundamental distrust of officialdom. So yes, those constituents who've been expressing that view to you, they have certainly been expressing it to me as well. So I am not surprised, and I have to say I have a huge amount of sympathy for it. It makes it very, very hard now for Dorset Council, for our police, at this bank holiday weekend, if they stop somebody in a camper van coming into Shaftesbury, or wherever it might happen to be for a day trip, what are you doing here? Where have you come from? Well, lockdown's over, isn't it? Because, we can do what the hell we like. It's a perfectly understandable response.
Who's to blame? The Prime Minister?
I don't want to get into a blame game, because I think you then get into personalities. We should focus on issues. I think the debate is still going to continue in the media, amongst the electorate and amongst members of Parliament. I have to say I am surprised, given the welter of criticism which took place yesterday and today, I am surprised to the point of being speechless that Mr. Cummings continues in office. I don't think he should put the Prime Minister in a position where he has to be sacked, but he should do the honourable thing and tender his resignation.
What would you like to have happen now, then? If Cummings is not going to be fired, how do the people of Dorset regain their confidence in the government messaging?
That is a very good question to which I do not know the answer.
The secretary of the Shaftesbury Primary School PTA says she's grateful to locals who've rallied round and given cash support after donations collected from her stall were stolen over the weekend. Katy Marshall's been selling flower pots, flowers and masks to raise funds for a new adventure trail for the children. The cash was taken from outside her home on Allen Road.
It was an absolute shock when I walked out the front door, and I was so incensed. That's why I shared it on Facebook, and a lot of people were very kind and have donated money, and we've topped almost £50.
So have you made more than you lost?
Yes.
There's a silver lining to this grey cloud, isn't there?
Absolutely, it's brilliant. So that's more money for the children's play equipment outside.
Dan Moyes of Dan's Ices saw her Facebook post and offered £25. Katie says she was touched by the gesture.
Thank you very much. It is very appreciated and very kind for you to do that.
Will you change the way in which you operate your honesty box now?
Maybe. It's difficult, isn't it? It's hard to know. Most people on this estate, well, majority of the people on this estate that I know are really lovely, kind people.
Well, you don't know it was somebody on the estate that took it, do you? It could be anybody going for a walk.
No, I don't. It probably wasn't.
And if you do have an honesty box, you might want to keep an eye on it over the next couple of days. Alfred Daily regular Alison Harding says that succulents and cacti have been stolen from her plant stall that she operates to raise money for Weldmar Hospice Care on Pound Lane. She says she'd like the culprits to return the plants or pay for them, as the charity helps the terminally ill and their families. She's also collecting crisp packets and pet food pouches and soap pumps. They can all be recycled and sold to raise money for the Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance. Drop them off at 17 Pound Lane.
This is the Alfred Daily.
We didn't have Paul Merrifield here with his pub quiz on Saturday, the normal time, because he went for quite a hike on Saturday to Tollard Royal. And now he's recovered, he's going to give you a bank holiday brainbuster. Here's Paul.
Question number 1. In the game Cluedo, which room can be accessed via the secret passageway from the study? Question number 2. What country was formerly known as Persia? Question number 3. Who won the Golden Boot at the 1986 Football World Cup? Question number 4. In the TV show The Simpsons, how is the character of Robert Terwilliger normally known? Number 5. The Great Society is associated with which US president?
And we'll bring you the answers from Paul before the end of today's Alfred Daily. Chris Norman has owned Melbury Motors since 1990, and after his enforced shutdown since the end of March, he's preparing to go back to work this Wednesday, the 27th of May, ahead of restarting car sales. He says the last 2 months have been the toughest in his 30 years of trading.
A tremendous challenge, really. I never anticipated in all the time I'd be running a business that I'd be forced to close for, well, it's just coming up 2 months now. You know, we've been supported quite well. The government's put in place a few measures to manage to keep us going. But I think it is going to be a challenge when we start up again.
Did you have any customers that got in a bit of a pickle when the lockdown was called, where they were in the process of trying to buy a car and you couldn't proceed with it because you weren't allowed to trade anymore?
Yeah, we did have a couple of situations where we were just in the process of about to conclude transactions, and we've actually had to put those on hold. We've had a couple of people waiting for their cars now for 2 months, knowing that we've actually got them there, just waiting to take delivery of them, which I'm guessing is going to be early June.
Now, I guess like most businesses, you could continue with the furloughing until October. the market at the moment for anything is uncertain. So why have you decided to open up from Wednesday? Why are you opening now?
Well, I think there's only so long that our customers are going to wait for us to reopen, and I've got to balance the risk of losing more and more business. We will generate some income on the repair and MOT side. I'm hoping that if the government are going to allow us to open our showrooms and start to buy and sell cars from the beginning of June, we'll have that aspect to our business to generate income as well. So we're really just taking a gamble on the fact that there might be enough business to sustain us from early June, really.
The official green light for car dealerships to open still hasn't been given.
There's actually been nothing in writing yet to say yes, it will be beginning of June. So at the moment, it is just a bit of guesswork. But I mean, we're reasonably well prepared. We've got all our systems and processes in place. We've bought a lot of equipment in terms of keeping our staff safe and PPE and that type of thing. So it's not going to take as many days really to put that into place.
The government has extended the date of MOTs, which expire on or after the 30th of March, by 6 months. So do you think there'll be much demand for those when you open?
Well, that's interesting. Some people might still prefer to have their MOTs done at the correct date, but I know that the Retail Motor Industry Federation and various other professional bodies within the motor industry are trying to basically have that reassessed, because they feel that we might have no MOT business now, but a surge of MOT business later in the year. That might actually make it very difficult for us to actually meet the demands when that 6 months extension comes to an end.
Are people going to want to buy cars in the foreseeable future? There are some bodies, as you probably have read in the press, who don't want to return to the previous way we lived and hope to be more sustainable, and there are calls for less reliance on cars. Is that something that's practical in North Dorset?
I don't think it is particularly practical in North Dorset. I think we're fairly safe in the knowledge that people around here can't rely too heavily on public transport, and car usage is an essential means of transport in the area. So I think we're going to be sort of fairly safe. And also, when you get Boris making the announcement that don't use public transport unless you absolutely have to, I think that there are some people who previously didn't use cars who are now sort of thinking that cars might be the safer option in the sort of short to medium term.
One of the national TV adverts that's popped up, a glossy commercial at the moment, is promoting buying cars through contactless means. And when you actually watch the advert, it's just selling cars online and they're using the buzz phrase contactless. But it's something they're playing on. It must be a concern with people. If you are able to start selling cars from the start of June, how do you deal with that process, particularly test drives, if people can't be in close proximity?
We've had a policy in place for some time where people have been able to take cars on unaccompanied test drives, subject to identity checks and checking their license. We do have insurance cover to allow people to take the cars out on their own for a test drive. So that's something we've had in place for some time. So we're still keen that people will be able to go and test drive a car on their own. Largely we can actually carry out these transactions with social distancing, and I mean there is, as you say, a sort of click and collect policy coming into place now, where people can actually really test drive the car, approve the purchase of it, and then when they come back, it basically is a click and collect. People now can transfer funds into our bank account. We don't necessarily need any signatures anymore, so it's a reasonably safe process. Even finance now can be arranged such that the signing of the finance documentation can actually be done by computer in people's homes. So there's very little reason for us to be in close contact with our customers prior to them collecting the car. And weather permitting, so much of the business can actually be done outside. We've now put in place a key drop box where people can drop their cars off in the morning and just literally drop the keys into a letterbox, so they don't even have to come into the showroom. We're emailing a lot of paperwork through to people now, rather than them having to sort of pick up paperwork from the desk. Contactless payments are put in place. Now if someone wants to have a closer look at a car without coming to see us, we'll operate video walkarounds for car purchasers. So a number of things that we're trialling and we'll put into process from beginning of June, really.
And Chris has words of encouragement for other businesses yet to reopen.
When I drive up Shaftesbury High Street and drive around the local area and see all these businesses closed down, I perhaps look at it, slightly different to a lot of people, being a business owner myself, and I just wish everyone the best of luck, when they do reopen, and hope that business volumes sort of bounce back fairly quickly again. It really is a period of great uncertainty for all of us, and let's just hope things pan out reasonably well for us.
This is the Alfred Daily. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.
Firefighters from Shaftesbury are still in attendance at the Wareham Forest wildfire, and the crew on Christie's Lane say they're lucky and that they have enough members of the crew to keep their big 4x4 pump at the forest 24 hours a day. They have a crew of 4, an officer, driver and 2 firefighters there, and they keep the same numbers available at the Shaftesbury station to respond to any local incidents that might arise. They say that the Wareham crews are stretched at the moment. The Friends of the Westminster Memorial Hospital are still asking staff what little luxuries and treats would give them a bit of extra emotional support in this difficult time. And they're taking donations. If you give money, and you can give cash on their Facebook page, you'll help buy things like hand cream for overwashed and gelled hands, or teas, or fruits, or even naughty cakes. And if you do donate on the Facebook page, if you select Gift Aid, the amount you give is boosted by 25%. Every penny of your donation on the Facebook page goes to the local heroes. There are no processing fees. So far, £310 has been raised for the staff of the Westminster Memorial Hospital here in Shaftesbury. Yesterday, Conrad opened King Alfred's Kitchen for the day with takeaway bacon rolls and teas and coffees and ice creams. He said it was just a test. Basically, he was fed up, but he is considering offering a full menu and takeaway tapas soon, and he says he'll let us know so I can tell you when they're open. I saw a social media post this week which made me laugh. I thought I'd share it with you. Sally Francis of Angola 76 has questioned why those treat biscuits that you buy for your pet cat are shaped like fish. Would the cat even notice or care? The hairdressers remain closed. I know quite a few women who've taken to wearing hats when they talk on FaceTime. We know that one Breach Lane resident is a dab hand with scissors, if you're interested. Kate Scott has been trimming one of her pet chicken's beaks. Let's join her for her weekly update on life with her 3 birds, and we'll start with a bit of spring cleaning in the henhouse.
Today is clean out day for the henhouse. So we're going to go in the top here and give it a clean out. They have a change of bedding every week or so in the top part of their house, which is where they sleep, and if they ever lay any eggs, this is where they're meant to lay their eggs. I use a product that's created from hemp, and it's got eucalyptus in it. That's quite good for keeping down any bugs or anything like that, and they seem to absolutely love it. They certainly prefer it to other bits and pieces that I've put in here. I had some sawdust in once that was proper dust-free sawdust that you mainly use for bedding, but Yellow started sneezing and wouldn't stop until I changed it back to their usual bedding, so they certainly prefer this. They always like to come and get involved when I'm trying to clear them out as well. So I try and do it when they're wandering around outside, otherwise they get in the way. They also seem to get quite excited about why I'm poking around in their house, as you can hear. They think this is definitely their domain, which it is. So whenever I come up in this part of their hen house, they're always very intrigued as to what I'm doing here. But they do seem to like having a nice bit of clean bedding. It confuses them a little as well. Whenever they come back in of an evening, they always take a look in the little door and think, oh, what's gone on in here? It's all nice and clean and smells nice. Yellow's properly having a bit of a squawk around because I'm in here. The other two are just merrily pecking around and scratching about in their bedding and enjoying themselves. But she's wondering what on earth is going on. Do you want me to change your bedding, Yellow? Yes or no? See, I take that as a firm yes. I'm going to try and trim Yellow's beak today. She has a very long bottom beak. She always will do. It's just how she is. So to keep the beak down so that she can access her food, I trim it with a pair of nail clippers. Doesn't cause her any distress apart from the handling of her. And you can see where the blood vessels are in the beak, so you know how far to trim. So it won't cause her any pain, but she won't like it, so we'll give it a go now. Come on, Yellow. Right, so we've got her under the arm, holding her nice and still. She doesn't like it, so I'm going to give it a clip now. She barely moves when I do it. She just doesn't particularly like the handling. So one more little bit to go. Might have to do that in a minute. She's had a little bit of a flap around. So she's currently got one side of the beak clipped and the other not clipped. So we'll just give it another whirl. Come on. So last little bit. You'll be pleased to know she's pooed on me, but apart from that, very satisfactory. That should do her now for another few weeks. Keep it in check. She does get very long nails, but they mostly manage to get ground down by her scratching around. So for some reason, she seems to grow her nails and her beak longer than the other chickens. Yellow also hurt her toe a while back as well, so she had a sprained toe for a little while. She'd obviously caught it on something, so my husband made her a slightly shallower ramp so she could get up and down into their sleeping area a lot easier. Fortunately, she's all healed now, but she is a little bit accident prone. They also had a visit from the fox again this week. If you remember, I said how they'd had one in the afternoon almost exactly this time last year. And again, this was at about 2:30 in the afternoon. They were still in their enclosure, so they weren't in any danger. But obviously there was a lot of squawking with them trying to raise the alarm. And I went outside to find a big dog fox running up and down the side of their enclosure, trying to work out if it could get in. It wasn't particularly bothered by me being there, to be honest. It was quite bold, so it took quite some running at it before it ran off in the other direction. Fortunately, they are safe in their enclosure, but it's obviously not very pleasant for them. Purple actually hurt herself slightly during the fox visit because they get so worked up, obviously, and I think she probably caught herself on something, so she was bleeding from her beak. But the following day, I'd cleaned it all up, and the following day she was absolutely fine. And in fact, they've had 2 eggs since then, so maybe the fox has frightened them into action. The longer daylight hours will be why they've started laying eggs. Chickens need about 12 to 14 hours of daylight to stimulate them into laying eggs. The eggs that they do produce won't be any use anyway, because unfortunately, when they lay them, the eggs are incredibly thin-shelled, purely because of their age. They have everything else that they need. They have enough grit. They have a proper balanced diet, but they're so old now that when they lay their eggs, they're just very, very thin-shelled. So by the time you pick them up, they've pretty much cracked. What quite often happens is that they'll squash it themselves by the fact that they are lying on it. And then they either choose to eat it themselves or it gets stuck all over the front of them on their feathers. But at least they're trying.
This is the Alfred Daily. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.
I'm sure you know that you're meant to stay 2 metres or 6 feet away from other people with social distancing to prevent the transmission of the virus. Just in case you weren't sure how far 6 feet was, or 3 steps, they've now got a banner on the balcony at the town hall displaying the distance. There's another one as well on the railings on Park Walk. It's time for your pub quiz answers. Here's Paul.
Question 1. In the game Cluedo, which room can be accessed via the secret passageway from the study? The kitchen. Question 2. What country was formerly known as Persia? Iran. Question 3. Who won the Golden Boot at the 1986 Football World Cup? Gary Lineker. Question 4. In the TV show The Simpsons, how is the character of Robert Terwilliger normally known? Sideshow Bob. And question 5. the Great Society is associated with which US President? Lyndon B. Johnson.
This is the Alfred Daily.
Let's join Nick Andrew at the potting shed for today's featured plant of note that he spotted on one of his strolls around Shaftesbury. Hello, Nick. What have you got today?
Hi, Kerry. Today I was on a lovely walk along Layton Lane and I saw a glorious Cotinus Royal purple, known as the smoke bush.
The smoke bush?
Not because it catches fire, but because when it flowers, they come up in a little plume that looks like wisps of smoke coming off the plant.
Well, what colour are the wisps then?
They're a very faint white colour. It's a strange, it's hard to describe, like little ferny bits that come out of the plant, and the actual flowers are in the middle of these inflorescences, to use a technical term.
So what colour is the plant generally then? It sounds like it's going to be something quite vibrant and look like it's on fire.
This plant is purple-leaved. You can get different colour ones. You can get a normal green one, but the royal purple is, as it suggests, purple. You can also get a yellow variety now, but I like the purple one because it really stands out, especially as a backdrop to other plants.
Is it quite an impressive one then? Is it kind of a feature plant?
It is. It can get quite tall. It's often more of a small tree than a shrub, although you can cut it back hard, in which case the leaves get a lot bigger, but it stays smaller.
What soils and conditions does this plant prefer?
Yeah, it's not that fussy about soil or conditions. The purple ones do like to be in a very sunny site. The green varieties can take a bit more shade, but for purple leaf plants in general, they normally need a very sunny position to do best.
So you've said it can be, by some people, I suppose lay people, mistaken for a tree, so I guess this can grow rather high.
It can do, yes. Yeah, they can get up to probably about 7 or 8 metres high. So that's probably almost the height of a house. So it can grow into a big tree if you don't control it.
How long will it take to grow?
They are reasonably quick growing once they get going, so it can put on a couple of feet a year. So it wouldn't take that long to get quite big.
Where do they come from?
It comes from southern Europe area, right across the Himalayas towards China way. So they actually come from quite a wide area down there.
Okay, and are they expensive?
No, they're not. You can buy them as a normal shrub-sized plant in a 3-litre pot in your garden centre for probably around the £10 mark. And you can sometimes find them as larger specimens as well if you didn't want to wait.
What would it go particularly well with then?
It would go really well with if you had something red in front of it, something like red hot poker or crocosmia, or something yellow as well. If you had a yellow-leaved shrub like the choicea that I spoke about last week, the two of them would look really nice together.
And would it be something that could be a privacy enhancer?
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. As the people in Layton Lane will be quite pleased that I couldn't actually look into their garden as I was studying the plant today.
Everybody would be going in and have a look at what they've got to hide. If anybody has any questions for you, they can contact you on email or phone or call in to the potting shed at Swan's Yard, I guess.
Certainly can now, yes. Yeah, now that time reopened, yeah.
Thank you, Nick. He'll be back next week on the Alfred Daily. Our Wardour Smallholders have been fearing for their flock this week. Let's join Mary Myers now, where there's a buzz in the air.
Welcome back to our smallholding in Wardour. Today we're going to hear a bit from Josephine, who's married to Tony, one of our neighbours, and about their bees. And then we're going to have an update from Simon about the sheep. Yeah. So how many hives have you got?
3.
3 now, active.
Yeah. But if we get loads of honey, we might sell it at the end of the laying this year, because...
Have you sold it before?
No, we've not sold it before. But it is quite an expensive occupation because all the things you have to buy for it.
You certainly don't break even then, or even make any money at all?
Oh, no.
it's...
We absolutely, because I'd be buying honey at £5-6 a jar every week. We didn't have our own bees. No, I'm sure we make on it. We don't lose out at all. But I know why honey is expensive. It's because the gear you have to get is expensive. The cost of the hives, the spinner, it's hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
And it's also quite labour intensive, isn't it? I mean, how often do you have to go and check the hives and do stuff with them?
Ideally, every few days at this time of the year. Ideally.
What about in the winter? Can you just let them get on with it?
But in the winter, you treat them for varroa. And did you just leave them, really?
Yeah.
Or you put a mouse guard on to make sure the mice can't get in. If you ever hear a swarm down in our fields, can you let us know?
Oh, yeah.
Because we can catch that.
Oh, yes. And try and
start a new colony.
Start a new one. Wasn't Tony saying that he's got 2 more potential hives that he could fill?
Yeah, he has.
Yeah. So, Simon, what's been happening with the sheep the last few weeks?
Well, we now have a final tally on the lambing. So all the ewes who are going to lamb have lambed, and we've had a lot of singles. So we've only got 15 lambs out of 12 ewes, and one of the 12 didn't actually have any lambs. So it's not the best of years, but generally speaking, all the lambs are healthy, and we're having fun watching them belt up and down the hill, race against each other and do their boinging thing, which is very entertaining.
Yeah. So how about Mrs. Brown's lamb, number 10?
Yeah, so Mrs. Brown's lamb had this strange ailment where its back legs were a bit stiff. And one of the things we had to do, well, Renato told me to do, is feed it with milk from a bottle. But it's such a dim lamb. It was so... it just wouldn't take the bottle, and then it would go completely catatonic. And then it suddenly woke up and had a panic.
Oh dear. Anyway, but now it's okay, it's drinking
so it's
from
got much better, and we can see it now with Mrs. Brown in the sunshine, looking much healthier.
Okay, that's good. And then what about fly strike and all that?
Oh yes, so we had a scare about that because a friend of Renato's who has a flock had a case of fly strike and they lost a sheep. Fly strike is horrible. There's a particular fly that attacks the sheep by laying eggs in their wool, and then the eggs hatch and the maggots burrow into the sheep, so it's really unpleasant and it can kill the sheep in a very unpleasant way. So you have to be ever vigilant to make sure the sheep don't get it. We don't like to use chemicals, but in this case, if you don't do some kind of treatment, there's a huge chance that they will get fly strike and die a painful death. So it's a dilemma, really. If you're keeping sheep, what we do is spray this chemical on their back and it keeps the flies away. So it is an intervention, but I think in this case you have to do it.
But if anyone out there knows of any non-chemical way of controlling flies, we'd like to know, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that would be the holy grail. Now, the next thing is, of course, we have to have them shorn.
Yes, and that helps prevent fly strike.
So we booked someone to come and shear them, but he's not coming for a few weeks.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that update there, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. She's back next week on the Alfred Daily. And that's your Bank Holiday Monday edition. Back tomorrow with Tuesday's show. You can listen anytime from 6 in the morning on demand on Alexa, on Google Assistant, or on the This Is Alfred website, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll finish with wildlife sounds recorded by Nick Crump, nesting house sparrows on Breach Lane. Enjoy this, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Stay safe, Shaftesbury.